Welcome to the program. We begin again in Narok County, where police are keeping vigil tonight following day-long chaos that rendered the Narok-Bomet highway impassable.
The violence broke out after Senator Stephen Ole Ntutu and 4 other legislators were arrested last evening over a public demonstration there. Betty Kialo reports on Narok's day of chaos.
The residents described it as the mother of all protests. And it appeared to live up to the billing. They had come in numbers. But so had the police, engaging in running battles, stone throwing and exchange of words. The smoke from the burning tires billowed from the town for the better part of the day. This rendering the usually busy highway impassable. The violent confrontations began in the night at around 9 o'clock. This after area leaders, including Senator Stephen Ole Ntutu and 4 other MPs, Moitalel Olekenta, Kolei Lemein, Patrick Ntutu and Johanna Ngeno, were arrested and summoned to record statements at CID headquarters following the vicious protests on Monday. Some of the area residents who were caught up in the melee had to be rushed to hospital after they sustained various injuries. For hours, the town remained a battlefield, with business owners opting to close for the day for fear of looting and violence. The protesters, who were armed with sticks and arrows, blocked the road at Ololunga area and another in Katagala, forcing motorists to use alternative routes to areas past Narok. Kam had by evening returned to the county, but reports indicate police are still on patrol in various areas. Betty Kialo, KTN.
Well, in another development here in Nairobi, the 5 legislators were finally released on a personal bond of $500,000 shillings each. They had earlier denied charges of incitement. Now, KTN's Wilson Buru now tells us the opposition coalition CORD is accusing the government of mistreating the leaders.
Donning their traditional Maasai regalia, the 5 MPs that have been at the center of the chaos in Narok were finally having their day in court. And their supporters were here as they answered charges of incitement before Senior Principal Magistrate Enoch Cherono at the Milimani Law Courts. The prosecution sought to have the leaders detained at the Mathaiga police station for 7 days and be denied bail, saying investigations into the Monday chaos were yet to be concluded. But the defense argued that it would be unconstitutional to keep the men behind bars.
That in dealing with the rights of an accused person, adopt an interpretation that most favors the accused in the journey.
The prosecution's demands, however, changed after the Director of Public Prosecutions made an entrance. He declared that the state had no objection to the application for bail due to the unrest that had been reported in Narok town during the day. Nonetheless, their concession would come with strings attached.
That they keep the peace and do not engage themselves in acts that may constitute breach of the peace.
After a break of more than 30 minutes, the magistrate delivered his ruling.
1. The respondents, namely Stephen Ole Ntutu, Kanyinge, Patrick Keturet Ole Ntutu, Moitalel Ole Kenta, Joanna Ngeno, and Korei Lemein, be and are hereby released on their personal bond of 500,000 shillings to appear before this court on the 13th of February at 9 in the morning.
Outside the court, leaders of the opposition coalition CORD that had been sitting through the proceedings criticized the government for what they called unfair treatment of the politicians.
Tunasema nataka kuona kama haki imetendeka Narok.
Ndugu yangu Nkaiseri, hata ungefaa ujiuzulu urudi kwa ODM kwa sababu unapakwa matope ambayo hutaweza kuyaepuka.
Tumesimama kusema we are allergic to corruption. Game shot.
The leaders are seeking the removal of the governor Samuel Tunai on claims of embezzlement of collections from the Mara Game Reserve.
The president also has a right under the same article to invoke where there is internal conflict to
really just, dissolve the county government. And that is what we are asking for, because the people of Narok have no faith in tonight's leadership.
The governor has since termed the allegations as baseless, with some in his camp arguing that he has closed loopholes for corruption and that the current strife is politically motivated. Wilson Buru, KTN Prime.
All right, that story forms the basis of our big question tonight. We're asking you, do you think the government is mistreating the 5 Narok politicians? Yes, indeed. Again, we are turning our cameras on the county of Narok. Tell us what you think. SMS your yes or no opinion to the number 22155. You can tweet us on @Ben_Kitili, @KTN Kenya, and at Linda Ogutu. Indeed, let's now give you a timeline of what has been happening in the county of Narok, just so you can understand what the problem is, what the allegations are being leveled against this particular governor. We'll do that on the Super Wall. And what is currently being witnessed in the county of Narok is a culmination of a tussle, 3-month tussle, between the governor and some of the leaders in Narok County. They're accusing him of misappropriating funds, and in particular funds that are received from the tourism sector, and more specifically from the Masai Mara Game Reserve. They're also accusing him of, quote-unquote, favoring outsiders, quote-unquote, when it comes to job allocation in the county of Narok. Now, immediately all these allegations came in, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission sent in the officials to try and ascertain some of the allegations that are being leveled against the governor. When the pressure started piling up, Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri placed a ban on protests in the county of Narok. According to him, he said this protest could turn chaotic. However, with that ban in place, on Monday, Senator Stephen Olentutu and 5 other members led protesters to present a petition to the governor, of course, showing their grievances. And 2 people lost their lives during this particular protest. Several others were injured. And the 5 legislators were arrested on Wednesday and detained at the CID headquarters here in Nairobi. This is where the problem started, really, because the minute the residents of Narok knew that their leaders had been arrested, protests erupted in Narok. You remember yesterday, Ben Kitili and I were following up on this story when the protests were just beginning in Narok. The minute the residents realized that their leaders had been arrested, those protests spilled into this morning. And what we know at the moment is that the leaders were released today on a bond of 500,000 shillings each. Ben? Thank you, Linda. We will continue to follow up happenings in the county of Narok. Now, police in Mandera County have arrested a man they say is a key suspect in the deadly attacks in Mandera County that left at least 64 people dead. Salim Abubakar Kitonga is said to have been involved in the planning and execution of the attacks. Mandera County Police Commander Job Boronjo has confirmed that to KTN that Salim was arrested on Thursday in Mandera town. Boronjo said that police have enough evidence to prove that Salim, a Kenyan citizen from Vihiga County, was heavily involved in the planning of the Mandera massacre. Police also allege that Kitonga is actively involved in Al-Shabaab operations in Mandera County, including recruitment of fighters. Police say Salim is behind the recruitment of Kenyans, Ugandans, as well as Tanzanians into the Al-Shabaab group based in Somalia. Without giving details, Boronjo says Salim is cooperating with investigators. Let's cross borders to Addis Ababa now, where Kenya earlier today launched a fresh onslaught on the ICC, seeking to have the case against Deputy President William Ruto dropped. The African Union Council of Ministers has now resolved to support Kenya's bid to have the case terminated. KTN's associate editor Noah Otieno has the details from Addis Ababa.
Now, the 24th African Union Summit here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, comes amidst a myriad of problems facing different regions of the African continent. The West African Bloc, for example, is very concerned about the Ebola epidemic currently bedeviling their countries. The Northern and Central African countries are dealing with different internal conflicts. In the backdrop of all this, the Kenyan delegation hopes to convince the African Union countries to support one big agenda.
I come from a community, Meru, where I have clear instructions even when I came here. Has sent me to come to this meeting and any other wherever I go to say this, the president is out of the ICC. But in the absence of an acquittal or a release of William Ruto as his deputy, then there can never be peace in the country.
We have to change our strategy so that Kenyans don't look at inwards, or rather, the Kalenjin don't look at Kikuyus, to blame Kikuyus and say, you know what, because nyinyi muko nje, sisi tuko shida, that will be very dangerous.
One approach is to have the African countries ratify the protocol giving African Court of Justice powers to deal with international crimes like the one facing Ruto at The Hague. The other is to get enough support within the Pan-African Parliament to apply pressure on the United Nations Security Council to have the case against Ruto dropped.
We believe in African solutions to African problems. We also believe that if we have our own court, we will have a better way of developing our own judicial infrastructure. Because with the International Criminal Court, what we have seen is that the cases are being prosecuted in The Hague. It's not actually doing much for the judicial systems on the continent.
ICC in Kenya, it is now the hindrance, is the one that is making Kenyans not move on. I think Kenya has come of age. Now we can deal with our own problems.
The third option is to win the world over by convincing everybody that Kenya is healing perfectly on her own without the ICC. For this reason, a big delegation of Kenyan civil society groups is here in Addis to explain what they call the IDP resettlement progress and, according to them, success.
Or was it because South Africa, it was the whites who are being forgiven, and then the world just accepted and said hallelujah? But when Kenyans are forgiving their own brothers, then it become a problem. Let me assure, ladies and gentlemen, when a child dies, do you live in the grave 1, 2, 3, 4, packers, 7 years? Or you just rush to bed quickly and make more children? Kenya is no longer in the graveyard. Kenya is in bed making more children.
But I really see an effort to recolonize Kenya. I see an effort to take over the resources of Kenya. I see an effort by the West to ensure that we go into some kind of turmoil.
According to sources inside the closed-door deliberations, the AU Council of Ministers agreed last night to push for the withdrawal of the case against Ruto, arguing that the same reasons that led to the dropping of the case against President Uhuru Kenyatta also apply in the case against Ruto. The heads of African states begin their plenary discussions Friday morning and will deliberate on what the ministers have resolved. Now, Tino KTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Let's look at politics now. Elijah Kanchori Memusi will be the Orange Democratic Movement Party's flag bearer in the Kajiado Central by-election slated for March 16, 2015. Memusi will now face off with Patrick Tutui of the newly formed Jubilee Alliance Party in a by-election which is being touted by both CORD and Jubilee Alliance as a litmus test for 2017 general election.
It was a celebratory mood for supporters of Elijah Kanchori Memusi when he was declared winner of the ODM primaries for Kajiado Central by-election at the Maasai Technical Training Institute in Kajiado town. After the final tally, Memusi trounced his 4 competitors by a wide margin. Memusi garnered 9,523 votes. His closest challenger, Olorasha Paita, got a paltry 1,497 votes. Simon Peter Olenkeri scored 566 votes, Paul Kaika 367 votes, with Dr. Naomi Kipuri coming at the tail end with 288 votes. Only 12,241 votes were cast during the ODM primaries. The constituency has almost 40,000 registered voters.
And we are warning our worthy rivals, Jubilee, if you think you are going to misuse state resources to attempt to intimidate, to hoodwink the people of Kajiado, we say we will match you blow for blow, pound for pound, shilling for shilling, dollar for dollar, power for power. We are ready to match you.
Jubilee wasijaribu njia yoyote kufanya rigging kwa hii Kajiado Central, kwa sababu tumechukua Kajiado Central kama kipimo ya 2017. Tunataka kuonyesha Jubilee ya kwamba serikali ya 2017 itakuwa serikali ya ODM na CORD.
4 other aspirants who participated in the polls, plus their agents, never appeared at the tallying center. On Wednesday afternoon, when the polling was still ongoing, Simon Olenkeri Olorasha Paita and Paul Kaika had threatened to pull out of the exercise, claiming the nominations had been flawed. This was after a person was nabbed with 5 unmarked ballot papers at Il Basil polling station, visited the polling center and said the incident was minor.
We believe that this is a minor incident of an attempt to defraud the electoral process, which was intercepted in good time. The culprit is now in police custody. We urge the police to make sure that upon full investigations, the law takes its course.
Memusi urged these competitors to support him to clinch the seat, which became vacant after immediate former MP Josephine Kaiseri was appointed to the cabinet. Last week, Memusi participated in the Jubilee Alliance Party primaries and lost to businessman Patrick Tutui. Tutui garnered 10,502 votes against Memusi's 8,848 votes. Memusi quickly ditched Jubilee Alliance Party for ODM. Tutui will be flying the JAP flag and has already been presented with the party's nomination certificate. He will now face off with Elijah Memusi in a mouth-watering grand finale slated for March. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Great, so let's leave politics alone for a moment and take you to Kisumu, where the word flyover has taken on a very different meaning.
An overpass that connects Nyamasaria to Bandani is now playing a rather different role, as Victor Ogale found out.
The 5.8 billion project on the Kisumu-Nyamasaria Road, which began construction over 3 years ago as one of the key pillars of the Vision 2030 projects, is slowly finding other uses. The bypass is expected to be a landmark that will change the face of Kondele. However, a closer look shows just how the residents of this area are seeing the flyover as a leisure spot. Most of them sit on top of the flyover without a second thought of their safety or the real purpose of the infrastructure. Another lot chooses to carelessly walk here despite the fact that vehicles drive by at high speed. While the Kenyan government is advancing in developing of infrastructure in the county of Kisumu, the residents are taking the so-called development as a stress reliever.
I used to go to job, but when it reached at 3 p.m., I come here is where I relax my mind.
Hapa kuna moral, yani ukikaa hapo unaona tu kama life ni nzuri, hiyo cold air.
Siogopi, kama imefika, siku ya kufa ni siku moja tu.
The menace is not only on top as under the flyover, others have turned it into a business hub ranging from brick and stone selling to vehicles for hire.
Juzi kwa mtu alianguka hapo akakufa. Kukaa hapo sio vizuri, hapo ni riski. Mtu anaweza kukusukuma, unaweza dhani unaenda pale kwa furaha yako na mtu anakusukuma. Tunataka hiyo watu wanakaa pande hiyo, watu weke mtu anachapa hiyo watu watoke hapo.
The county executive member in charge of physical planning and roads, Vincent Kodera, also expressed his concern over the menace and said they are working on awareness campaigns with the Kenya National Highways Authority.
I'm sure Kenya is going to provide issues of awareness. If you look at Thika Highway, Superhighway, you will see that there are posters, there are, general caution on how people should behave on and around the roads.
It is considered Kisumu's most busiest center due to its geographical location, but if nothing is done to their lawlessness here in Kondele, well, Kondele Center could just be a time bomb in waiting. Victor Ogale, KTN, in the county of Kisumu.
Thank you for staying with KTN Prime.
Let's take it to the county of Kirinyaga, and despite the ability to produce a more sought-after product, honey bees are feared by many for their sharp, painful sting.
One man, however, has made bees his friends and even lives with them in his house.
Hives dot every corner of his humble timber abode in Kiangai, Kirinyaga County. Nyamu Kahiu, aged 57, has lived with his bees in his house for the last 9 years and says that he and his bees do enjoy a cordial relationship and that they do not bother him if he does not bother them.
Though illiterate, Nyamu feeds his family by harvesting 200 to 300 liters of pure natural honey, and his beekeeping venture can only get stronger. Here's Carol Nderi with that story from Kirinyaga County.
The fear of a bee sting is enough to make you averse to the buzzing creatures. Here, the proverbial once bitten, twice shy comes quite alive. But not one man from Kiangai in Kirinyaga County. Meet Nyamu Kahiu, a 57-year-old man who is famed for living with his bees, literally. Beehives hung precariously from Nyamo's Mabati house windows, and at first we are not too convinced to get in to carry out this interview. Other hives hung about the walls of his modest home, and hordes of bees swarm everywhere in this compound where he stays with his wife and 4 children. Known as Jokinne by the locals here in Kiangai, translated to the Big Bee, he has been with his bees for the last 9 years. But why bees? And even then, why live with them at such close quarters?
Kwa maana hawa wanafuga ng'ombe, manaitikia kweli hiyo ni kitu itasaidia. Hata ukifuga nyoka ni kitu kisaidia. Sasa mimi nikaonelea kifuga si ifuge ati misinga 10, nifuge nyingi ndio kitoa asali inanichosha.
He says his neighbors are not at all perturbed by the numerous bees buzzing about.
Hata mgeni akikuja hapa, mimi namwambia asijaribu kufanya namna hii. Ndio ukikuja wewe unakaa namna hii, inazunguka yeye hata ukipua kwa nini, kwa inyuru. Usiguse.
A claim further emphasized by the extension officer who helps Nyamo man his bees.
Changamoto ni kwamba most people are fearing to keep bees, and you bear witness, you are here all through the interview and you have not been disturbed by those bees.
That they are even grateful for the immense benefits that come with the bees beyond the copious amounts of natural honey. He goes on to tell us about a ludicrous sounding malaria cure from the bees.
Mtu akikuwa na malaria anakuja kuchukua nyuki akaweka kwa mkono akadungwa. Kama safari 3 malaria inaisha.
What of his wife and children?
Lisoyana kwa maana manakaa naye kwa nyumba. Hata akifua nguo kama hii si iko na maji. Nyuki inakuja inanyonya hii maji, alafu akikuwa karibu hata inasunguka yeye, lakini kama mpusa usifanye namna hii.
And we are curious to know if Nyamo has ever found himself on the wrong side of his bees.
Sasa ukigusa namna hii itaona wewe uko na vita. Na itaanza kuenda kukustaki wewe. Na ikistaki wewe kutakuja wengine.
Smoking out the bees is the traditional way of harvesting honey, but one Nyamo would rather not use it as it makes the bees violent and, in his words, vengeful for being smoked out of their comfort zone.
Ukitumia moshi, nyuki itakuwa na stress. Na ikikuwa na stress, wakati kwa maana nyuki na harvest wa usiku, wakati wa mchana itaanza kutafuta ule analikuwa na gusa yeye.
At every honey harvest, he fetches about 200 to 300 liters of honey. At the age of 57, he attributes his youthful look to what he calls the royal jelly, that is pure, natural, unadulterated honey.
Wera ni wera, kazi ni kazi.
There you have it. Carol Nderi, KTN, Kiangai, Kirinyaga County.
Let's take you to Western Kenya now. Learning in schools in a remote village in Webuye West constituency has been paralyzed after a Jigger pandemic that has seen many students fail to attend classes. The situation is so dire that education and health officials in the area say if it persists, then schools may be forced to close down entirely. Timothy Otieno has that story.
Galala village in Bungoma County, a rather quiet place, the silence perhaps muzzling the concern among school-going children in the area. A Jigger menace has gripped schools here and in its wake affected learning.
Watoto hawezi tembea, hawezi fanya chochote, juu miguu zote zimeumwa na vidudu.
Mukite Primary School is the most affected. The school, which boasts a pupil population of 980 on a normal day, has been reduced to a paltry 366 pupils.
Hao watoto hawezi wakashika masomo yao vizuri kama wale wengine hawana hiyo ugonjwa. Wandiposa na wazi walimu wakati wanapoona ugonjwa kama huu walilia serikali.
Neighboring Milo Primary School has not been spared either.
Tuko na wanafunzi karibu 200 ambao wameathirika na funza. Na hata hawafiki shuleni, na kuna wengine wanakosa shule na wanafanya hata performance inaenda chini.
Nataka nipone tu ndio niende shuleni.
It's a worrying trend that stakeholders fear, if not checked by the county government, may reverse gains made in the education sector in the county.
Mazingira ikiwa mbaya ndio
funza zinaweza kuingia. Ni lazima wahakikishe kwamba environment is highly clean.
Parents here hope that more of such medical clinics will be carried out in the area so that their children can walk back to class with healthy feet. Timothy Otieno, KTN.
Away from Webuyo, the Standard Group says it will continue its support for devolution and will continue to work with governors and county governments in this regard. Speaking during a courtesy call at the Standard Group, Nandi County Governor Cleophas Lagat said that his administration was keen on ensuring quality health care and education for the people of Nandi County.
You should know that the Standard Group is supportive of devolution. It's supportive of discussing the bills that are being developed at the Parliament and at the Senate that ensures that the aspiration of the Constitution with regard to devolution is well addressed in the bills. And you can take assurance from the group that whenever there are bills that don't seem to support devolution or that goes against the spirit of devolution, we will be able to articulate those through our media.
We also want to request the media that we work together towards scrutinizing the bills, because at this earlier stage of devolution, we need to get it right. Because if we get it right right now, the generations to come will benefit from this. Because then, once we have proper bills, the bills to guide this devolution and freedom is something that we cherish as a Council of Governors, and more and myself. I believe media is a tool that will take development of this country forward.
A very good evening and welcome to KTN Business. My name is Abi Agina. Thinking of buying a parcel of land in Nairobi? Then this might be of interest to you. Land prices in Nairobi are on the rise. According to the latest House Property Index, land prices in the capital city have grown by more than 535% since 2007, with values expected to continue rising. Land in the capital has continued to outperform all other asset classes as a return on investment. This then begs the question, how high can prices rise? Here's more on that. Land has long been the investment vehicle of choice for most Kenyans. For those with deep pockets, Nairobi clearly is the place to bet big on, with land prices shooting through the roof.
You had to buy an acre in Kilimani sort of to build a house. It cost you 370 million, which is just not affordable for most people, for 99.99% of people in the market.
Nairobi's land has reached the point where only the highest value buildings can still be built. This therefore means that the quantum rise of the last 7 years is not the pointer to the same rise again in the next 7 years.
According to the latest land index, the cheapest place to buy land in the urban areas in Nairobi is Karen, but even that will set you back a couple of million shillings. On average, land is retailing at about 44.9 million shillings. That is in the prime areas in the leafy suburbs. This is then followed closely by Langata, where an acre averages 46 million shillings. According to the index, land prices have gone up by 535%, representing a five-fold appreciation in land prices, way above prevailing market rates globally.
For as long as demand is pressing, or demand outstrips supply in these areas, the price will continue to rise. However, we don't believe that it will rise at the escalated rate that it has in the last 7 years.
The index places Nairobi's Upper Hill area as the jewel in the crown, with an acre of land going for 473 million shillings. Other highly priced areas include Westlands, where an acre is retailing at 361 million shillings, closely followed by Kileleshwa at 252 million shillings, with Lavington closing the park at 202 million shillings for an acre.
Other factors driving the differences in price acreage within the same suburbs include one, accessibility, infrastructure availability, and the general desirability, including the surrounding properties and the view.
Although urban land has delivered the highest return of all asset classes, the spike in prices is somewhat good news to landlords in the said prime areas. The trends, according to real estate analysts, indicate that the prices will keep on the high and more home buyers are likely to go for apartments as they move their way up in the property ladder. One of the recommendations to tame the skyrocketing land prices has been to zone out areas to allow for buyers to easily pick out areas mapped for commercial or residential or mixed-use property development.
Well, in relation to that story, analysts are saying that now a lot of property developers will be looking at buying land in the outskirts of Nairobi. And moving on, more than half of Kenya's 47 counties will not be able to pay salaries for their workers and perform other administrative functions after they encountered various challenges when it came to the ceilings by the Commission on Revenue Allocation and Control of Budget. The CRA has stated that 227 counties in the red, including Machakos, Nairobi, Makueni, Nyandara and Samburu, have failed to comply with the Commission's guidelines on expenditure, with most accused of unilaterally seeking to inflate their budgets. So far, only 20 counties, including Kakamega, Baringo, Bomet, Nyeri, Uasin Gishu, Taita Taveta, among others, have since complied, and money has been released to these counties. A memo from the Office of the Control of Budget seen by KTN Business Desk indicates that some of the counties have not even paid county workers' salaries for December, with some not paying their bills and other devolved funds. CRA Chairman Mika Chesirem says in the memo that counties ran into the red after the county assemblies passed budgets without adhering to the ceilings set by the Commission. Moving on, players in the tourism sector are pushing for fundamental changes to the country's marketing plan to reverse tourist numbers. This comes as the country continues to lose tourists who opt for other destinations on account of travel advisories that continue to put the country at a disadvantaged point. And as Philip Keitani reports, it will take much more than image reconstruction to get tourists flocking back into the country.
The last 2 years have been anything but rosy for the tourism industry. Cases of insecurity around the country have seen a number of countries issue travel advisories that have been attributed to the sector slump. Tourism revenue fell 2% to 96.2 billion shillings in 2014 on the back of a drop in tourism numbers by 29,000 from the 1.2 million arrivals recorded the previous year, underlining the industry's troubles. Tourism, which accounts for 1.6% of all the economic activity, also supports related industries that are suffering from its slowdown. It is for that reason that players are calling for a complete overhaul of how policymakers view the industry.
The fight against terror should actually be a concerted effort, should be a global effort, and it should not target only some countries and leave some out.
Travel advisories have been a tone in the tourism sector, despite mounted efforts by the government to have them reversed. While talks have been ongoing, tourism stakeholders say that certain countries have not entirely lifted advisories, further complicating the matter.
You have to sort out the security situation. Let's build that confidence in our source markets. Secondly, we have to go out with some very quick promotions should the travel advisories be lifted, because that's one element, because even if you went out marketing and the various governments are saying don't go, then it's a problem. They still won't come. So
this has put Kenya at a disadvantage as a tourism market, with neighboring Tanzania said to be the main beneficiary. A tourism recovery force that was set up by President Uhuru Kenyatta last year with the main objective of getting the sector back on its feet. Some of the recommendations that have so far been proposed include getting an international PR marketing firm to create a positive image of the country, overhauling tourism products said to be outdated, and promoting Kenya as a tourism destination across the continent. Philip Keitani, KTN Business.
The Nairobi Securities Exchange is seeking to set up an oversight committee to govern operations of the newly licensed derivatives market. In an ad in today's daily, the boss sought application for interested parties to join the oversight committee. The team will be an independent committee of the NSE that will essentially advise on risks, strategic issues, and oversight roles relating to the derivatives market and the NSE clearinghouse. The derivatives market is seen as a step towards deepening the capital markets by allowing listings of instruments like future contracts and options. Well, let's now take a look at how your money worked in our financial report. A very good evening and welcome to today's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Moses Wahesi. Now, starting on a rugby gear, a rejuvenated Nakuru RFC will be hoping to tighten their grip, and that's obviously on top of the Kenya Cup log, where they lead after having accumulated 44 points. The Wanyore, who are searching for that consecutive Kenya Cup title, will face a 6th-placed Homeboys RFC on Saturday. The reigning champions are yet to lose a single match this season, and they are geared to impress during their next outing.
Nakuru RFC has without a doubt been the team to beat in the past 3 Kenya Cup seasons. The Kenya Cup League gets to match day 10 this Saturday, and no team has yet managed to beat these defending champions. Back at the Nakuru Athletics Club, the team is not ready to slow down, as evident in their workouts. The team is not only determined to win the league, but to also maintain their unbeaten run in the league.
What we're trying to get our boys to do is to raise the tempo and you know, keep focused on the ultimate prize.
The team will this weekend travel to Nairobi to play Homeboys RFC, who are placed 6th on the log on 23 points.
But of course, the opposition is also getting tougher and tougher. So we approach them, each one of them, with a lot of respect.
But even as the champions continue winning a game after the other, head coach Dominic Kabimana confesses that staying at the top is harder than it seems.
And the league is actually one long one, and it just gets harder and harder as we progress. So it's actually 15 legs, not 2 legs. So each particular game is a leg on its own, and it has its own challenges.
Nakuru will get into Saturday's fixture buoyed by the 24-12 home win against Mwamba, although they are wary of second-place KCB, who have also maintained an unbeaten run but are 1 point adrift of the leaders owing to lesser bonus points. Lynn Washira, KTN Sports.
Let us wait and see how Wanyore will fare in their Saturday clash against Homeboys, a tie slotted for 2 p.m. at the Impala grounds. Now moving on. After coming from a game down to level matters in the Kenya Basketball Federation's finals in Mombasa, fireworks is expected this weekend as defending champions KPA battle against short USIU Flames in Game 3 of the 5 series. And as Robinson Okenya reports, with the title online, the game is expected to be an energy-sapping affair.
A repeat of the 2013 Kenya Basketball Federation Women's Finals is in the offing, with KPA facing Students USIU. After surrendering a 1-0 lead to KPA, USIU will be seeking redemption going into the 3rd game, hoping to avoid last season's heartache. Under the guidance of George Mayenga, the Students' experienced players Hilda Indasi, Cynthia Irakunda and Sarah Zainab are expected to light up for the Flames, who are on course for their first ever KBF title. After coming from a game down to level the series, KPA will be seeking to have their local dominance felt in Game 3. Having lost to Flames in Zone 5 Championship last year, Coach Anthony Ojukwu is wary of a disappointing outing. Game 3 and 4 of the 5-game series will take place on the 30th and 31st of January at the Nyao Gymnasium. Robinson Okenya, KTN Sports.
EABL, through its brand Tusker, handed over 2.75 million Kenyan shillings to all football and rugby clubs that participated in the just concluded Tusker Jigger game promotion. Among the top contenders for the national campaign that started in October and ended in December were Tusker FC, Gor Mahia FC, AFC Leopards, Thika United and Sofapaka FC. 16 football clubs, 9 rugby clubs participated in the promotion. Tusker FC emerged victors and bagged 704,950 Kenyan shillings, followed by Gor Mahia FC, who garnered a total of 584,912 Kenyan shillings. The 3-month Tusker Jigger game year to promotion was designed to appeal to grassroots support, which is the bedrock of fans club movement in Kenya.
The fan club movement across Kenya, and offering the Kenyan public a rare opportunity to participate in direct support of their favorite teams.
We thank you for being part of a big question tonight and for watching KTN Prime. We'll see you next week. Have a good night. I'm Linda Ogutu.
Many thanks for your company all through this week. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night. See you next week.